It's just, you have to force behaviors. And if you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race or just any way you want to say the composition of your team, you're going to be impacted. And that's not recruiting, it is development, as Ken said.
How do you force change, though? I mean, Larry, BlackRock has really been in the forefront of the ESG movement within corporate governance and a real leader. And yet change is so slow. So what is, and Ken as well, how do you force change when it is so incremental and so gradual? Thought about that. Has the board of American Express thought about more radical things we could do to enhance diversity and inclusion?
Because it has to be imbued in the culture of a firm. It has to be talked about, it has to be shown. Behaviors across the entire firm in every region have to be similar. And every citizen of the firm has to understand what is acceptable behaviors and what are unacceptable behaviors.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about a bombshell video that was dropped by the O'Keefe Media Group from James O'Keefe, who, in my opinion, is probably one of the best journalists that we have in the conservative space. Him and Savannah Hernandez highly respect those individuals. They're exposing people left and right. And James O'Keefe does not fail, once again, because he's exposing BlackRock, okay? I'm not sure exactly how he sets up these interviews with some of these people, okay? I'm not sure if he gets hot girls to go on dates with them, right? Like, how does he get people this comfortable, right? There's two things. You got to get them on a date, and then you also got to get them comfortable. You also have to find them as well, too. The fact that they're able to do this is just, it's fascinating. But anyways, they're going to be exposing BlackRock, okay? Because we know that BlackRock has a massive stake in ownership in a lot of, these companies in the world, okay? A lot of people are saying that these companies are going woke because companies like BlackRock and Vanguard are telling them to go woke, okay? They're trying to get their ESG scores up and stuff like that so that they can get more funding, or because, BlackRock and Vanguard, they own these companies. That's the theory, right? And this guy is going to talk more about BlackRock and their influence that they have in general, okay, and especially when it comes to politicians and politics. And I find this to be fascinating because what he's saying is basically like saying water is wet, but I think people need to be reminded every now and then who actually controls the world in these countries and why. I want to get into this, but before I get into it, I just want to let you guys know, if you like my channel, you want to support my channel, you can check out my merch. Like, for example, the shirt I'm wearing right here, No Days Off, right? If you want to check that out, you can at my website, gforemanbcp.com. Get 20% off using discount code TEAMBCP. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Like, you're kind of like a fucking gatekeeper at BlackRock.
Yeah, I am. I decide people's fates. Every fucking day, I literally decide how somebody's life is going to be shaped.
So this dude is a recruiter, right? So he basically helps decide who gets hired at this company. Just so you guys know his background.
That's so powerful. I love it.
Yeah, it's and the whole thing of like domination from a concept is it's so interesting.
Introducing Serge Varley, whose LinkedIn says he's worked for Morgan Stanley, Citadel, and now as a recruiter at BlackRock.
I work for a company called BlackRock. I'm not actually a finance guy. I know what happens because I'm recruiting people who do these things. Mm-hmm. I'm the person who headhunts people from other firms. So I would approach you and be like, hey, this is a good reason why you should come work for us.
Serge tells us who really runs the world, how they do it, and just how much it costs to buy people, like politicians.
Let me tell you, it's not through who's the president. It's who's controlling the wallet. So it's the
And who's that?
The hedge funds, BlackRock, the banks. These guys run the
Facts. Facts. I mean, again, this is why I said, like, this is like saying water is wet, okay? And this is why I think that the conservative movement, if we actually really want to rid corruption out of politics, you have to actually remove money from politics, okay? Because, again, it's not about the politicians. You can buy a politician, right? It's very easy. They're prostitutes, okay? They simply just do whatever their donors tell them to do, okay? If their donors tell them to support a certain position, they will support a certain position. And that's just the end of it, right? They don't actually go in the office and do the will of the people. They go in the office and do the will of their donors, okay? Again, look at Joe Biden. Allegedly, he was bribed with $10 million to do the bidding of Burisma, who his son was on the board of, right? By basically pressuring Ukraine to fire a special prosecutor that was investigating that company. Okay, allegedly, right? They paid him $10 million. Who knows? Could be $30 million to do that. Okay, that's what's being alleged. But I'm just saying that's a prime example of what I'm talking about. Joe Biden was not doing policy based off what's good for Ukraine, okay, or the U.S. He was doing policy based off what's good for his own pocket, right? Lining his own pocket. Again, it's just amazing how that works, right? And when you hear this stuff come from people that work at these companies like BlackRock or whatever, it seems like a revolutionary thing or groundbreaking thing, but it's actually really not. This is just commonplace. This is how it works, right? The people with the money actually are the ones that are calling the shots. It's really that simple.
Campaign financing. Yep, you can buy your candidates.
So,
All of these financial institutions, they buy politicians.
how do they run the world?
You acquire stuff. You diversify, you acquire, you keep acquiring, you spend whatever you make in acquiring more. And at a certain point, your risk level is super low. Like, imagine you've invested in like 10 different industries, from food to drinks to like technology, right? One of them fails, it doesn't matter. You have 9 others to back you up. Risk management is inherently in just about everything.
Well, I mean, again, he's talking about the finance side. He's talking about diversification and how you can theoretically lower your risk profile by diversifying your assets and what you're invested in. But that just assumes that you're diversifying over a diverse group of assets. If you are diversifying over a bunch of risky assets, then you still have risk and you're still going to experience volatility, or more volatility than the overall market, or whatever you want to compare it to. But yeah, I mean, I guess he's talking about what Vanguard and BlackRock do in regards to buying everything, right? They buy a little bit of everything. And you got to admit, that does give them quite a bit of power and control, right? When you own a lot of everything, which, a lot of stuff they own is with our money, because investors put money into these companies, and these companies take the investors' money, and then they go and they, purchase ownership shares in these publicly traded companies. And yeah, I mean, that gives them voting rights, right? It gives them power to wield the fact that they have all these shares, okay? And it is something I think that we should pay more attention to, okay? And it is something that is worth talking about for sure.
And in the finance space, it's all about it's all about the money you make. You don't let it sit. You keep using it over and over, and
Reinvest.
And it exponential growth.
And then once you just own a little bit of everything, is that where the control?
Yeah, you own a little bit of everything. And that little bit of everything gives you so much money on a yearly basis that you can take this big ton of money, and then you can start to buy people. And obviously, we have this system in place. First, there's the senators, and these guys are cheap. You got 10 grand, you can buy a senator.
Facts, right? Yeah, you can buy a senator with 10 grand, right? They cheap as hell, okay? I mean, I'm not saying because I know personally, but I'm just saying, if you want to, you can't. Okay, I mean, you can buy a local politician, okay? You talk about a guy that's on city council, you can buy him easily, okay? Get maybe a couple thousand, you can buy him. All these guys are for sale, right? Politicians are prostitutes, right? That's what they are. I almost want to call them prostitutes by default, because quite honestly, I really don't see too much of a difference, right? I'm just saying. But yeah, that's kind of how it goes. You buy your politician. You don't need to vote, okay? You don't need to play the Democrat-Republican game. Why do you think a lot of these companies, they donate to both sides, right? They donate to Democrats and Republicans because they know it's not about Democrat-Republican. It's literally about who you buy, right, and what they can do for you, okay? That's what it's about.
It doesn't matter who wins.
You're still right.
They're my pocket list. I can give you $500K right now, no questions asked.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do what needs to be done. They're like, yeah, of course.
And
why not?
does everybody do that? Does BlackRock do that?
The BlackRock Recruiter also tells us about how the U.S. government relies on BlackRock for their economic simulation computational power.
Economic simulation. They need to understand the impact of something, right? They're gonna raise the interest rate, for example. It's gonna create this cascade of various factors that they're not sure what it's gonna do, basically.
And just how fucking great the Ukraine war is for business.
Do you have any thoughts on the Ukraine-Russia war?
Ukraine is good for business. You know, right? We don't want the conflict to end.
Why?
We don't want the conflict to end as a country. The longer this goes on, the weaker Russia is.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, well, again, that is the argument. I mean, I've said this before. This is much cheaper than actually fighting Russia directly, and you're also not losing American lives. Now, you do risk World War III, right? But that is the way they look at it. And also on top of that, the military-industrial complex, okay, the guys like, for example, Halliburton, Lockheed Martin, etc., these companies, they get paid, okay, because they get to sell their weapons to Ukraine. They get paid, and then they turn around and they give a kickback to the politicians for keeping the war going, right? This is what they do, okay? That's how it works. That's how it worked in Afghanistan. That's how it worked in Iraq. That's how it works, okay? War is good for business. This is why we do war. It's not a coincidence that the Pentagon just announced that they made a multi-billion-dollar accounting boo-boo, right? Just a boo-boo.
Following up from some announcements earlier this year, during the department's regular oversight of our execution of Presidential Drawdown Authority for Ukraine, we discovered inconsistencies in equipment valuation for Ukraine. In a significant number of cases, services used replacement costs rather than net book value, thereby overestimating the value of the equipment drawn down from U.S. stocks and provided to Ukraine. Once we discovered this misvaluation, the comptroller reissued guidance on March 31st, clarifying how to value equipment in line with the Financial Management Regulation and DoD policy to ensure we use the most accurate of accounting methods. We have confirmed that for FY23, the final calculation is $3.6 billion, and for FY22, it is $2.6 billion, for a combined total of $6.2 billion. These valuation errors in no way limit or restricted the size of any of our PDAs or impacted the provision of support to Ukraine. And while the DoD retains the authority to utilize the recaptured PDA, this has no bearing on appropriated USAI or Ukraine PDA replenishment funding approved by Congress.
It's not really about the altruistic, immoral good of trying to, give people a democratic government and freedom from a dictatorship. That doesn't matter, because if that actually mattered, we would have invaded Saudi Arabia, okay? We would have invaded a whole lot of countries if democracy and morals actually matter, right? What actually really matters is that, are you on our team, okay? And can we make some money off of going into your country and, pillaging your resources, right? I'm just saying, that's the real talk, right? That's real talk, okay? That's what it is.
I'll give an example. Russia blows up Ukraine's grain silos. Price of wheat's gonna go mad up. So what are you gonna do if you're a trading firm? The moment that news hits, within a millisecond, you're gonna pump trades into whoever the wheat suppliers are, into their stocks. Within an hour or two, that stock goes up, and then you sell, and you just made, I don't know, however many mil.
Why would a news channel promote a side in war?
Because it's also good for business too. What's news? News, right? What does news feed on? They feed on strategy, they feed on up events. That's what people like to watch. So when it happens, it's good business. More viewers. When nothing's happening, watches news. I don't watch news.
They're all pushing the same talking point. Generally when you look at news,
it's propaganda. Ukrainian economy is tied very largely to the wheat market, global wheat market. This is fantastic if you're trading. Volatility creates opportunity to make profit. War is real good for business. It's exciting when goes wrong, right?
Surge all.
Yeah, I don't hear anything there that he said that is probably not a fact, okay? When you have Russia disrupt the world supply of wheat, right? As you can see here, right before the Ukraine war happened, this is where it was at. It's about 800, okay? And then it went up to over 1,200 overnight, right? A whole lot of people got rich off of that happening. Now, it eventually dropped back down, okay? But as you can see here, what happens is that, you know, Russia disrupts the supply of wheat, okay? And that drives prices up. This is basic supply and demand, okay? And this is par for the course, man. I mean, when you see people like George Soros, for example, he buys politicians, okay? He influences these woke DAs to get elected because he pays for them to get elected. He puts a bunch of money in these local races to have these woke DAs elected, and then they enact policies that cause chaos and destruction in these cities, right? I mean, it's really that simple. And again, it's one of those things that a lot of people think that is left versus right, is red versus blue, but it's really not. It's really not about the politicians as much as about who bought that politician, right? Who tricked that politician out, okay? That's what it's about, right? So I don't think this man is saying anything groundbreaking. I find it fascinating what he said, but I don't think it's groundbreaking. I just think that it's like saying water is wet. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.